So Sean McDermott wins 66% of his games and gets fired, while Zac Taylor is 9-28 without Joe Burrow, and he gets a pass. Tonight on the show, we're going to be talking about, obviously, the coaching carousel that's going on in the league, some narratives attached to the Baltimore Ravens, and some of the playoffs. Obviously, we have the AFC Championship game set. We're going to dive in, talk a little bit about that and the rest of the Bengals on today's show. So let's jump into it. All right, welcome back to the show. This is Fourth and Who Day. I'm your host, Corey. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If it's your first time, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. And if it's, second time around, appreciate you guys coming back. We're talking Bengals, we're talking AFC, and we're talking some news, some hypotheticals coming out about the Baltimore Ravens today. But first, we're going to start with the coaching carousel that's going on in the NFL. We have 25% of the league has vacant head coaching jobs, although some of those were filled. Obviously, Harbaugh leaving the division, immediately signing with the Giants. Mike Tomlin taking a leave from the Steelers, and then Stefanski fired from the Browns and hired with Atlanta. And I don't think, that doesn't do it justice to say like how good these coaches are and were in the AFC North, although Stefanski never had the success, right? But when you dive into it, I would take any of these guys over Zac Taylor in a heartbeat. And I think that's the thing when it comes down to it. I always say never just make the coaching change for the sake of a coaching change. Have a plan in place, and you never get a pool of talent like you do this year. And that's the problem, is like this was the year that we should have fired Zac Taylor, and unfortunately we didn't do that. And look at all these head coaches with a pedigree that have done things in the National Football League that are out and on the street, and the Bengals are sticking with Zac Taylor for another season. So we're going to talk about kind of the ramifications of how that might turn out. I have some positives. I want to shed some light on that as well, and we'll dive into it. But let's start with Zac Taylor overall, 52-63-1, 45.3 win percentage. The big one is without Joe Burrow, 9-28, 24.3%. I think we can all agree that he is a product of Joe Burrow. We saw what he was his first year in the league, and every year after that, without Joe Burrow, he has suffered. And I think the biggest argument there is like, listen, I get it, he's a superstar quarterback, but you got coaches in this league that win games without their superstar quarterback. I think Kyle Shanahan's a perfect example of that this year. He took Mac Jones and that 49ers team on a competitive stretch there without Brock Purdy, and especially with all the injuries that team has gone through, they made it to the playoffs, and they're actually fighting for the number one seed in the NFC, which speaks volume to him as a coach, right? And then you look at all the coaches and what they've done this year that are, first-timers. You got Ben Johnson in Chicago, what he's turned that team into, and then you got Liam Cohen in Jacksonville as well, and the success that they had this year. And I think that just goes to show, like, how important good coaching is in this league. And we all know it. You know it. Fans, Bengals fans alike, we all know it. It's the coaching that's ultimately going to make this team that much better. And I think, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of watching Joe Burrow be the GM and go out there and say, we got to sign this. Like, that's not his job. It's not his job. You need to take that shit off of his shoulders. Just allow him to play football and focus on that. That's the whole point. That's where you're going to get the best Burrow on the field, right? So this organization has a lot to upgrade here, and I don't want to spend time just talking about that because we've done that. We've talked about that narrative. But let's look at like the Bills. Sean McDermott fired, and we could take a look at that game against the Broncos, and it's not just McDermott. I think, obviously, Josh Allen with the turnovers, the Buffalo team as a whole just hasn't been what it's supposed to be. And you look at the news of McDermott getting fired and them retaining, but not only retaining, promoting their general manager, a general manager whose drafted very poorly and done nothing to help this team. I think McDermott was a scapegoat in this situation. Look, I get it. You got to make it to the Super Bowl. This was your time. But at the same time, you're not just going to find head coaches like Sean McDermott and what he's done for this team. It's a different story with Zac Taylor, right? Like, he didn't make the playoffs the last 3 years. Buffalo's had the most success in the playoffs. And as a franchise with McDermott at the helm and what he's done, just consistency, pure consistency. And I get it. Like, can't get over that hump. I think that speaks more to the general manager rather than the head coach. And I feel bad for the Bills fans right now because, I don't know, this could turn out bad. And they're kind of stuck in this situation where you got to kind of start over with a new head coach. And I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but I don't think Sean McDermott was the guy. But he's a free agent or a coaching candidate right now that everybody's going to be looking at. He's had success. We have all these guys with success, but we're retaining Zac Taylor. Now, I don't necessarily want to lean into just the bad on the Zac Taylor side of things as well. And this is going to kind of tie into the Ravens and when I was talking about some hypotheticals here. Could this be a good thing? The fact that, the AFC North is in such purgatory and we happen to have retained our head coach and we have that consistency still. And, Duke just had his press conference, talked about, like, we've done this, we're going to get it right. Like, yeah. But at the end of the day, when you have Joe Burrow at the helm, you're going to be competitive. It's whether or not they go out in free agency in the draft and they push their chips in and they do something about it. The last couple of years has been a Mickey Mouse offseason. They have not committed what they needed to. They did not go out there and actually make big moves that the team needed. They decided to, sit back, just take, a couple free agents that were kind of, outliers that weren't in high demand. And then they went into the draft. They took a shot on a guy like Shamar Stewart. Like, you can't do shit like that. And when we look at this offseason, we go in there. The reason I have the optimism is, number one, that continuity. Number two, all those head coaches are gone. Look, there's going to be a new regime for all these teams, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Browns. And I look at that, I'm like, okay, this is good. Number two, we have a top 10 draft pick, a great defensive class. So we're going to be getting a great defensive player to add to our team with that top 10 pick. And they should immediately translate to results. So that's huge. We have plenty of cap space to go out there and sign guys in this offseason. I think the total number is, I have it here somewhere. Don't have it right here yet. But anyway, once I get the number, I'll get back to you guys. Okay. 60 to 110 in cap space. We have the money to spend, period. And there's some guys out there that are going to stand out, and I'll get into that, and I'll talk about that a little later on. There's free agents that can make a massive difference on this team. So when you look at those things, yeah, I mean, there's obviously reason to be optimistic. You have Joe Burrow. Like, we're not going anywhere. And the last thing was we got the third easiest schedule next year, and that's huge, right? This year we played a very strong strength of schedule. We got the Colts, Texans division, the AFC next year, and then we got the Falcons division as well. So two of the softer divisions that we got to play, and obviously we play the third-place opponents in the rest of the AFC division. So I like our odds next year. So that's something to be optimistic about, to say the least. But another thing, too, is, and I want to touch on the Ravens. Harbaugh gone, and now you have a little bit of controversy where the GM, DeCosta, comes out and he says, we need to get a new deal done with Lamar here, by March. Obviously, they don't want that lingering in because right now when you look at it, Lamar's projected cap hit, $74.5 million, which is huge. It's going to be tough for them to kind of figure things out with a cap hit like that. So he obviously wants to get that restructured, new deal in place so that they can allocate more money to players. Now, word on the street is, and this is just, gossip, that apparently the Raiders are in play to make a push for Lamar Jackson. Now I'm going to bring up, obviously Mike Florio, and this is just part of the rumor mill. You can't trust him fully, but let's take a listen to this, and then we'll talk about what that does to the AFC North.
We didn't plan any of this, but since we're in the subject, or on the subject, as the case may be, of the Raiders, I mean, it's been so long since they've been competitive. They've been to the playoffs twice since losing Super Bowl 37 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the fans continue to be loyal, and they're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and we're waiting to get any sense of where they're going to go with a head coach. Tom Brady, I believe, based upon some conversations I've had, is keenly aware of the fact that he's not going to be able to duck the criticism this time around. Somehow last year, he was able to keep a distance from the debacle, even though he shouldn't, because it was clear a year ago it's his show now, as reported by the Las Vegas Review-Journal. It's his show now. He was able to, not now. They put the statement out when they fired Pete Carroll. John Spytek is going to work in close collaboration with Tom Brady to run football operations and hire the coach. I just wonder who they're going to hire, and I wonder what they're going to do. They've got to fix the quarterback position. There are some who believe, and this was in the Mike Preston column about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and I have a feeling that Mike Preston has heard the same kinds of things I've heard. There's a feeling out there that the Raiders are going to make a play for Lamar, that's the big splash. Offer the first overall pick in the draft for Lamar Jackson. Before that, they got to hire a coach. But, Tom Brady feels compelled to do something. It may not work, but just do something. It doesn't seem like they're doing anything. Last year, it was just kind of like rearranging the furniture. This year, people are expecting him to do something big.
Mike, if I'm that scenario of offering the first pick for Lamar Jackson, if I'm the Raiders, I'd do that in a second, and I'll even throw something else in for you. I'll throw something because I feel like I'm winning that one. Okay, whatever you need. But do you think the Ravens would do it? You think the Ravens would be tempted to do it? I think they'd be nuts to, but do you think they would?
Steve Bisciotti made it clear the other day they want to get a contract negotiated with Lamar Jackson before free agency. He's got a $74.5 million cap number for 2026. And I wrote an item at PFT, and I was guessing the other day with Chris what kind of a total value on a new 5-year deal could get him the highest paid label above Dak Prescott, more than $60 million per year in new money, but also create cap space. There's an item at PFT, but the numbers support the idea that this is easy to do if they want to do it. Does he want to do it? And is he going to want to be there once they hire a new head coach? He's going to be paying attention to what they do. I don't think he's going to be thrilled if they hire somebody who's got no head coaching experience. I think he'd like to get somebody in there that's been a head coach from the offensive side of the ball who can get more out of him. And he's still got some say in all of this. He's like, if your quarterback isn't all in, it's impossible to get as much as you can out of your quarterback. And that's one of the things. They got to get somebody there that gets him to show up for the offseason program, especially with a new coaching.
Yeah, he goes on, he keeps talking about that, but I think the big takeaway here is, like, there is a possibility. You can entertain that conversation. He just talked about, obviously, the Raiders, they have the capital there. They have the first overall pick. Would Baltimore entertain something like that? Yeah. I think given the cap situation and where they're at, have to hire a new head coach, and obviously with what was going on and the speculation around Lamar not being content, this and that, like, I can see that happening. I can see both sides coming to that agreement. But I can also see, like, you get a player like Lamar that's generational. I can see that there's no shot that the Ravens do it either. But it's something fun to talk about, because what does that do to the AFC North if Lamar is gone? Joe Burrow and the Bengals are the undisputed kings of the North for sure. And I think you got to go through Cincinnati now. So when I look at that, I think there's a reason for optimism going into this offseason with the Cincinnati Bengals because of the fact, in spite of that we're talking about, Zach should have been fired. Yeah, I completely agree. But with Joe Burrow there, it doesn't fucking matter. You just have to attack the offseason. You have to get the players in place here. And I think this team can turn it around and be competitive just given the circumstances of everything else around them, right? It's crazy to even entertain that conversation about Lamar, but I mean, hey, I'm all for it. I'm sure you guys out there, Bengals fans alike, would be all for that as well. We don't got to keep up with Lamar and the Ravens. But, I mean, it's kind of crazy. The wild part is you look at the AFC Championship game between the Broncos and the Patriots, and everyone will say, obviously, the Patriots they had the easiest path to a Super Bowl ever. If they make it there, yeah. And I think the lack of talent, this goes to show you how important it is to make use of these years with Joe Burrow, because he would be competing with all these teams. It doesn't matter how bad the defense is. He would be winning, and if not winning, in every single one of these games, because their offense is that good. He is that good. So, man, none of us want to be sitting on the sidelines. So correct this. Go all in. Do what you got to do, because you can't be taking these half-ass free agents and getting guys in the draft that aren't going to contribute. This is huge. And there's only two ways I see this going this year. You're going to get a Bengals team that's going to either make it to the playoffs and be massively successful this year based on what they did in the offseason, or you're going to have complete turmoil where they do the same shit, they don't get the pieces, everybody's on the chopping block, Joe Burrow's frustrated, and you essentially might have the demise of what is the Joe Burrow-led Bengals, because I think there's just too much turmoil. Why would you even want to be a part of that? It's been multiple years where they've needed to push the chips in, and we're just not seeing it. So I only think it goes one of two ways. So we're going to see what this front office does in the offseason. But I definitely want to dive into more of these mock drafts and take a look at what they need to do from a free agency standpoint. And then as well from a draft standpoint, there's awesome defensive players in the top 10 picks. Would love to have Caleb Downs fall to us, but based off of all the hype, I don't know if he's going to make it. So, we got Peter Woods there. Either or, great picks. You just got to see how the draft falls. I'm hoping some of these offensive players get hyped up a little bit more, so some of these defensive guys can drop down, but it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, I'll be making a video on that, but what are your guys' thoughts? Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel here, potentially, with everything that's going on in the AFC North? Do you see some of that optimism that I see? And what do you guys think the Bengals need to do in the offseason here, moving forward, to make sure that we get back to that competitive football team that we were a couple of years ago, right? But I appreciate you guys tuning into the show. It's your first time here, like I said, like and subscribe. I'll be putting out more Bengals content in the offseason here, keeping up with these guys. So, like I said, appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Out.
In the dead of the night, I